Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain, where I have my coffee. It is just a basic Americano with a splash of oat milk. I have books and my reviews as per usual, and no rain, but you know what? I'm always hopeful. And today we are reading a book that I just tried to find on Goodreads and it did not want to go. So let's go see if we can find it now. I think I had a hiccup in my interwebs. There it is. All right, we are reading Livingston Girls by Briana Morgan. And this book it's a little predictable, but overall it's pretty good. It is YA, so I do give it a little bit of a break. It's not super intense. But I'm going to get to some of the aspects in a minute. I probably give it about a 3.75 to round it up to 4 stars. It was enjoyable, and I would read more by this author, but was it perfect or anything of that nature? Nah. But it was entertaining, so I'm going to give it that. But let's dive into the summary. I see something in you, Miss Abbott. Something I recognize. The potential for greatness, for channeling magic, for bending the world to your will. After an affair with the teacher, Rose's parents ship her off to Livingston Academy, a stuffy all-girl boarding school. Ashamed of her past and herself, 16-year-old Rose just wants to chill, pass her classes, and make friends. The last thing on her mind is becoming a witch, until the enigmatic headmistress gives her the chance to join a coven secret from the rest of the school. Desperate to prove herself and looking for a purpose, the headmistress's offer seems too perfect to pass up. Rose puts on her metaphorical pointy hat and becomes a Livingston witch. She quickly discovers that the other witches don't want her in their group, especially because she's filling their dead friend's space. But if they can't band together, the witch-hunting headmistress of the boys' school will kill them. Meanwhile, Rose struggles to understand her growing feeling for her roommate, who may or may not hate her guts. You know, typical boarding school stuff. Now, it's approximately 280 pages in paperback. I did have the ebook, and I want to say it was a little bit less than that. And it does release, this says October 18th of 2015. But that may be an independent release date. I received it via NetGalley just recently. And I think there must be another edition. Yeah, I see another edition coming out 2025. So I'm wondering if the other one was actually like an independent release or like a self-publish, and maybe this is going to be through a publishing company. So I do see that Briana Morgan, was the one who published it first. So potentially it's been picked up by a publisher, and which is why it's getting a NetGalley release. But let's dive in. And I do feel like there were a couple things. Well, for one, right off the bat, I don't think the summary is a very good summary. And I'm kind of seeing this pretty frequently, where the summary either tells us too much, is too vague, or just really gives us like nothing. And this one gives us too much. I think this kind of sets us up for some things that are not exactly the same in the book. So, for one, yes, Rose does come to Livingston Academy. Her parents have taken her out of the other school. She was pretty much taken advantage of by her teacher, and she, being a 16-year-old, thought she was in love, and he used his power over her. And she does come to realize that through the course of this particular book, that it was not her fault, that she was taken advantage of. And so she comes to this school. She has no friends, and her roommate Charlie does not seem to want her there. And so She is just feeling completely out of sorts. She is so very lonely, but also kind of reaching out to her parents. Her parents are very, very standoffish as well. So there's a couple points where she tries to reach out to her parents to talk, and they're just like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, you'll get over it." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this girl is suffering." And these parents are just like, "Oh no, you just need to stay there. No, the media's still outside, so we got to go." And it's just kind of like, this poor girl has no support from like any direction. And so it felt really kind of bad for Rose, because I mean, she's a 16-year-old girl, and she doesn't deserve this level of kind of a little bit of abandonment from everybody in her life. Nor did she deserve to be used in the way she did by someone in authority. And so that was really. Now, I was gonna question whether I felt it was really relevant to the story, but I guess it kind of is, because it helps to explain why she is so withdrawn in herself and why she can't really let it go. So it doesn't seem as though she's dated anyone her age before. This potentially was what she thought of as her first relationship. And so she's having a hard time getting past it. Because again, like I mentioned, she thought she was in love. But she is, of course, 16. And everybody thinks they're in love at 16. And she just sadly had the hots for teacher. But teacher took advantage. And that is really an abuse of power. So that was really, really wrong on his part, more than anything else wrong on his part. Well, now she's at this new school, Livingston Academy for Girls. And she's got this roommate. She's at the start of the school year. Her roommate is Charlie. And there are several other people as well. There's Billy, there's Ronnie, there's, is it Luna? Lucy? Or June. June. And so I think that's right. June. Yes. So there are approximately 5 in their group. And so this summary, again, makes it out to be that these girls don't want her, like, in the group. But that really only lasts for like the first 15% of the book. She's brand new. She doesn't know how to fit in. Charlie's a little upset, and she comes to learn why pretty quickly is because the person who used to share Charlie's room with her was her own sister. And so her sister passed the year before. So yeah, Charlie's angry, but it's not really directed at Rose. It's just the fact that Rose is in the place where her sister was, and so she has some animosity from it. And so Charlie, seeming to be the head of this particular group, is able to kind of steer them along. However, I say pretty quickly, because I don't feel like they really put her on the outside, like, for very long. I want to say it was like the first week of school, and then they kind of started including her. So the way this sounds is that the headmistress, she is the one supposedly who picked Rose. And yeah, potentially. But it seems as though, too, that the girls, who are also the Livingston witches, have also chosen Rose to potentially join their coven, because when the mistress finds out, she's like, "Oh, okay, let's go ahead and do it." Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting is they use poetry as fuel for their spells. And so I remember a couple, like, I actually took a picture of just some of the ones that were used, because there is a page towards the back of the book that kind of lists the poems or parts of poems that are used. And I recognize so many of them, like Prometheus Unbound. There's a quote from that. A Dream by William Blake. Let's see, what do we got? Ode to the West Wind by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Let's see, we got quite a bit of Shelley in here. And what else? We have William Wordsworth, Lord Byron, Samuel Coleridge, John Keats. So they really do use some fairly, like, impressive poetry, but they're only using like one or two lines. I remember one particularly, they were using Kubla Khan, and it ultimately draws forth like a torrent of water. But that's kind of what fuels their spell, is when they understand the poetry, they're able to then apply it to the intent that they're trying or they're aiming for, and thus the spell can be successful. Now, the more powerful of a witch you are, then the less almost blowback there is, because I know Rose kind of casts the spell at one point and it almost kind of hits her like a punch in the gut. So there is a bit of blowback when she does certain spells. And so there are a couple spells too that if you try to conduct them more than a handful of times, they can potentially kill you as well. Well, I'm not going to try to give spoilers, but there is a boys' school, and it's called Reinhardt. And at the beginning of this book, Charlie is dating a guy. What's his name? Eddie? I think his name is Eddie. And they're constantly fighting. But overall, like, Eddie and his friends, I think there's a guy named Sadler who is Ronnie's brother. He's a little bit meek, but he's really good. He's a good guy. And then there's Devin as well, who's like Eddie's best friend. But there's only like the three boys. We don't learn about more of the boys. And then there's Eddie's dad, who is the headmaster of the boys' school of Reinhardt. And apparently he has some sort of like previous entanglement with their headmistress at this girls' school. And so Rose is accidentally kind of like in the room when he comes over one day. And it's not like in a sexy way. It's more like he comes over and he just drops in, and Rose happens to have already been in a meeting with the headmistress. But let's just say he is a not good dude. I was going to say bad dude, but I'm just going to say not good dude. And so things just really kind of snowball from there, because he's trying to get his hands on the headmistress's grimoire, which is kind of where she keeps her collection of spells, like pretty much bits of poetry and what they can do. So he's trying to get his hands on that in order to potentially use that power. He feels as though him, I guess more or less as the man, deserves the power more than these weakling women. And I was just like, what? Rude. But overall, the book is not bad. Again, it does feel a little more YA than I anticipated, so I do think that's probably something that needs to be considered. And so if it's gonna be YA, then I would probably lean against doing like some of the more romantic things that happen, but these are 16 17-year-old girls and boys, and so like it's still YA, because it's still things that happen like to high school level kids. So I mean, yes, we've put it in a fantastical magical setting, but it's still things that potentially can happen in a regular high school setting. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. It does have a dark academia vibe, but I don't feel as though it was like as well executed as some. And I also just feel like were there other kids in this school, because we don't really like mention like any other students like at all. Like there's maybe like this super small handful, but otherwise it's just these 5 girls and that's it. And I'm like, this must be a either small academy, or we just aren't talking about the rest of the kids like all wandering around. I don't really know. I do think it also tried to kind of do a little too much with the relationships, the witches, lesbian. I mean, I think there was just a lot going on, especially like dark academia. I've covered a couple of dark academia with some romantic interests and things of that nature that I think just worked a little bit better for me. There were just points where it didn't really balance for me. Some points felt a little juvenile, and then some points felt a little bit more adultish. So I think I was looking for a little bit more balance. And if we're going to be whimsical and sarcastic, then let's just stick to the whimsical and sarcastic, but otherwise. Like I said, I give it about a 3.75 to rounding it up to 4 stars because, I mean, I would potentially read some, like, do I want another book in this series? Nah, probably not. But I do think her writing style, I will probably potentially pick up something else and see what she has to say. But with all of that, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here and let you all decide if this sounds like something you may want to pick up. If not, that's perfectly fine. We've got a lot more coming up, and I think we've also covered quite a bit as well in the past. So hopefully you're able to find something that sounds up your alley. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.